So Yo-Yo.
Yes.
So it sounds like just some general obedience because he's getting bigger.
Yeah, I think overall he's pretty good. He just has a couple size related behavioral issues that are kind of hard to control.
Okay. So go ahead and fill me in on those.
So one of them is jumping when he wants to greet somebody that he's excited to see.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty straightforward. He's just super excited when they come to the door, and as soon as you open the door, if you're not holding him, he's like in their face. So they could be 6 feet tall and he's trying to be face to face with them.
Mm-hmm.
If you are holding him, he's just kind of like this little ball of explosion that as soon as you let loose, he's back to doing it.
Yep. Okay.
So, but it's after that, after trying to control him for the jumping, he calms down.
Okay.
He just wants to get his face on their face.
Okay. What else?
And then on walks, his reaction to other dogs is always to either like stop and lay down and wait for them to come to him. So he'll become dead weight in a sense. Mm-hmm. Or if he's going to pass a dog and they're sort of behind him, he'll do a double take and he'll freeze just to see if they're going to follow us. If a dog is walking behind us, like maybe 30 feet, like he can't control himself. Like he just constantly keeps doing look backs. Mm-hmm. And he's friendly if he gets the approach, but it's almost like he's just so desperate to interact with the other dog that he just wants to stand still mm-hmm. until that occurs.
Okay.
Those are really his two behavioral traits that I like to correct.
Okay. Obedience wise, what are you looking to achieve?
I would like him to walk on leash a little bit better. He's pretty good. I just prefer, because he's a leash walker, but I prefer him to walk by my side, not walk in front of me. Mm-hmm. He's got a little issue with zigzags. And then if anybody joins us on the walk, he's completely off the charts. Like he's just going back and forth, and then he'll pull, like he's just so excited that someone else is there. He doesn't walk like he does when it's just me.
Gotcha. Okay. What about recall?
No recall.
Okay.
No. If I walk away, he'll follow me.
Anything else?
No, those are really the things.
Is he on a prong collar?
No. So I do put a prong collar on him when we go on walks, but I don't attach the leash. Okay. I only use it when we cross paths with other dogs to kind of contain him. Okay. So he's used to the concept, but he's never had it on he's never had it attached to a leash.
Okay. So it's kind of like just there in case you need to manage him?
Yes, it's just to give me extra control.
Okay. Was that just something you picked up on your own, or?
Yeah, I started doing it in March, and I mean, at first I felt like I was using it pretty frequently during a walk, but then now it's like maybe if we're passing like a tight sidewalk and there's a stroller and a dog approaching us, and I just want to make sure that he's not going to like stop in the middle of the sidewalk or like get too excited with the other dog. So that's when I use it now. And even now I could just touch the back of his neck where it is. I don't even have to like hold it. Mm-hmm. And he'll kind of contain and stay close by.
Okay. Anything else about Yo-Yo, like either obedience wise you'd like to be able to do, or?
I would love for him to go off leash one day. I just think he'd be too excited to see any other dog that he'd just bolt right to them.
Right. I'm assuming you guys know how I train. We use prong and remote collar here. Okay. Yeah. Are you familiar with the remote collar at all?
Only conceptually.
Okay.
Never used one.
Okay. So e-collar, a lot of people dub it as like a shock collar. Mm-hmm. It's not a shock. It's not electrocution. It's a miniaturized TENS unit. They use the technology on humans all the time. So if you go to, or if you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist, it's like the circles that they put on the muscles that would move
Yeah.
the muscles. Yeah. So that's an e-collar. It's just a muscle stimulator. Um, and what makes it effective is that um, the size of the person doesn't matter in terms of the size of the dog. So like I had a young lady, she was probably like 90, 100 pounds, and she had a 150-pound Great Dane, and he was dog reactive, and
Oh.
she lived in Bucktown. So, he would drag her across the street. So in her case, we did prong with e-collar because she needed as much leverage as possible, because she could turn the corner and be confronted by a dog, just out of the blue. So she did prong with e-collar, and the e-collar allowed her to correct and stop the reactivity, and it wasn't contingent upon like her physical strength. Okay, so like a prong
Mm.
collar is meant to mimic a dog bite. It's a very effective tool. However, it has its ceilings. One of them being if the dog's size or the reactivity is like kind of too much, and you try to correct them. If your correction, the intensity of your correction is not to the level of the behavior or to the size of the dog, you're not going to get anywhere. Okay, so that's where e-collar came in her case, is that it allowed her to correct her dog despite the fact that she's like 90, 100 pounds to 150 pounds, and get him to stop the behavior. Okay, so the e-collar that we use has 127 levels. They go in increments of one, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 127. And then we have to figure out what is your dog's like what we call working level. Okay, every dog's level is going to be different. Size of breed, size of dog, breed, personality type, temperament, aggressive, non-aggressive, none of that stuff matters. Every dog perceives the collar differently. Okay, so most people think when we deal with aggression cases, we come in and it's on 100 and we just like punish the dog, and that's not how it works. If you go to a physical therapist or a chiropractor and you were to have TENS therapy done, they start low and they work their way up, and they would ask you to tell them when it becomes too much. So then you would tell them, okay, that's too much. They would lower it and they would say, how does that feel? And you would say, that's fine. I can deal with that. And they go, okay. And they leave you alone. They let the machine do its work. It's similar to with dogs. If the dog is yelping, we know it's too high. If the dog's not listening, we know it's too low. We're trying to find that middle ground. Okay. And the working number may change depending on what's going on in the environment. So if there's dogs walking by, if he's walking to like the park or the dog park and he knows the path there and he's going to be excited when people are coming over versus when no one is home, or you're walking down the sidewalk and it's empty, those levels might change, but you kind of get tuned in to Yo-Yo, and it's really just kind of logic and common sense. Once you get a feel for it, like you'll know, like, okay, when there's dogs around, his number's 45, when there's no dogs around, his number's 25. And you'll just kind of go up and down on your dial as needed. Okay. What makes it really effective is, dogs are physical animals. Dogs don't give each other treats. Dogs don't praise each other for good behavior. If Yo-Yo were to get out of line with another dog, they would snap, nip, or bite him to correct them, to teach them not to perform that behavior. Okay. But they don't reward good behavior. They really only punish bad behavior. Okay. So positive reinforcement training with treats, food is great for puppies under 6 months. It's great as a reinforcer, but it's not good for stopping things. So like if a dog is being reactive, trying to stop the reactivity with food, it doesn't work. All you're doing is redirecting the dog, which isn't necessarily stopping the behavior. It's just bringing the attention elsewhere. But if the dog, if what they're targeting is greater than the value of what you have in your hand, it's not going to do anything. Okay. Or if you see something more valuable, like a dog, that's with this higher reward, the what's in your hand again also doesn't matter. So that's where aversives come into play. So prong collar is an aversive. E-collar is also considered an aversive. Okay. So aversive is something that the dog does not like, that they would want to stop, right? So like, let's say we put the prong collar on Yo-Yo. If I pull up on the collar and I create pressure on the prong, it puts pressure on the neck and he goes, hey, I don't like this. And he might sit down. And when he sits down, I would remove the pressure. Okay. And if he gets
Mm.
up, I would put the pressure. He sits down, I would remove the pressure. So he's learning, oh, when I feel this and it's going up, if I put my butt down, it disappears. Okay. So he's learning that he can control the pressure by responding to it and performing an action. Okay. So the e-collar is very similar. It's a form of pressure. It's what I would call like remote pressure because it's just a contraction. So if I pull up and push down as I'm tapping on the button, Yo-Yo would feel that contraction and he thinks, I don't like this. And then when he sits down, everything goes away. Okay. And then he gets up, I start tapping, I help him with guidance. He feels it. He's like, it's back and I don't like it. He sits down, it goes away. Okay. So we use pressure to shape everything that we teach, even if the dog already knows the command. So I get a lot of dogs that are trained on food already. And the owner will say, like, oh, my dog will lay down for a treat, but they won't lay down because I told them to do it. Right. So then we have to layer in remote, even though the dog already knows how to down, they don't know how to down in response to e-collar. Okay. So we always have to reshape everything using the remote collar. Most people tend to use prong and e-collar as punishers as opposed to motivators. Okay. So the difference between a punisher and a motivator is if I tell Yo-Yo to sit and he doesn't do it, and I say, Yo-Yo, sit, and I repeat, and he doesn't do it. And I go, Yo-Yo, sit. He still doesn't do it. I go, all right, now I'm going to punish you. Right. People tend to give the dog options to perform the task to avoid the correction. So the dog ends up perceiving it more as a punisher. But if every time I say sit, the collar kicks in uh, immediately, he thinks he's going to want to beat the punch. So when I start to say sit, he's going to start sitting really fast because he's trying to avoid the pressure. So he doesn't see it as a punisher. Okay. So it's all about how you apply it. And it's technically the same, right? You're still applying
Mm.
the e-collar after you've given the cue, but most people tend to give space and then harshly correct the dog as a punisher, as opposed to always kicking in with the collar every time they say something. And the dog thinks, well, if I just sit like this, I can avoid it completely. Okay. So that's why our dogs, we don't have to repeat anything because we don't give them the option not to perform it in the first place. Okay. And
Mm.
that's something that like a lot of people do because they feel bad. They're like, oh, I like, I feel bad remoting my dog or I don't want to hurt my dog. And it's not about hurting the dog, but it's because they're physical animals, you know. So like growing up, I was raised old school. I was spanked. So, I've had that conversation with some people and they're like, oh, your mom hit you? I was like, well, I don't really view it as hitting. Like technically, yeah, but like I got out of line and I got spanked. So that's how that worked, right?
Mm.
The spanking was to deter me from performing things, but also to motivate me to do other things. If I didn't get straight A's, I got spanked. If I talked back to my mom, I got spanked. If I stayed out too late, I got spanked. If I didn't do my chores, I got spanked. Like it was just spank for everything, right? So then I learned, okay, if I just follow the rules and I do my chores and I don't do certain things, I can avoid these consequences, right? And that kind of shaped me into who I am today. So dogs, um, their form of spanking is biting. So we try
Mm.
to we use tools that allow us to technically bite our dog in a fashion that they understand to shape things, but also stop things, right? So if Yo-Yo jumped on another dog, and that dog did not like Yo-Yo jumping on them, they would bite him, right? That does not make that dog aggressive. That
Mm.
dog is going, hey, I don't like you jumping on me, so stay back or I'm going to bite you, right? Same thing if like he were to be staring at a dog. Let's say he's staring at the dog and the dog goes, hey, I don't like the way you're staring at me. Even though Yo-Yo is being friendly or social, they might become defensive to teach him, hey, don't look at me that way, right? So here, when we do the remote collar and the e-collar, we can use it both to shape things, but then also to stop things like the jumping on people, the laying down, the staring at dogs, and him just being able to pass by a dog and like not have to like how do you say zone in, on it. And when it comes to the leash walking stuff, remote collar is the only tool, in my opinion, that allows you to get as full proof of an off-leash obedience as possible. Okay. Question so far?
None.
So when it comes to off-leash training, I know a lot of people think, like in your case, when you mentioned earlier, like, oh, like I'd like to have him off-leash, but I'm afraid he'd be too excited and he would, like, if he sees a dog, he'd go to like greet the dog or whatever, right? So that's where a couple things can happen. One, nothing is like remote training. Okay. You would be surprised. It doesn't change the personality. It just soothes the dog. It helps them calm down so much. Okay. So I don't know if you've seen Marshall. He's one of the German Shepherds that comes to my daycare. And they're doing training with me. And we taught Marshall a couple of weeks ago place command, which is go to the bed and don't move. Okay. And if you're chomping in the background, it's my dog chewing on the bone. So, so Marshall's been remote training with me. We taught him place command, and he started to fall asleep on the dog bed. Okay. And they were in shock, and they said, this is crazy. He never sleeps outside of his kennel. They hadn't seen him fall asleep outside of his kennel in 5 months. Okay. And in those 5 months, he was constantly barking at them. He was constantly asking for attention, picking up toys, staring out the window. He was constantly doing something because he did not know how to turn off. Okay. So by teaching the place command and putting pressure behind it, it allowed Marshall to learn how to turn off and just relax. And then after they had that class, when I saw them the next week, they were like, oh, he's been sleeping around the house more. He's not like all over the place like he used to be. I'm like, because we taught him another option. Okay. So, but it's the discipline behind the e-collar, but also the way that we apply it that helps dogs settle. Okay. So we're not trying to create robots, but if I say heel is meant to be functional. Heel is, you're going to walk at my side, we're going to pass by dogs, we're going to pass by people, we're going to pass by strollers and rollerbladers and bikers, we're going to go to the park, we're going to walk to the dog park, we're going to walk here, and you have to stay at my side. Okay. People tend to give leniencies where they go, well, Jesse, I don't need the dog to walk really tight in my heel. I just need the dog not to pull me that much. And I go, that's too complicated. The dog is either going to pull or the dog is going to walk at your side. Okay. The recall, whether he's playing with dogs or he's chasing a squirrel or he's running around zooming at the park, recall is meant to be functional. I don't care what Yo-Yo is doing. If I call him, he should 180 and come straight back to me. Okay. Now, it's not to say that he won't decide one day not to. Maybe he's playing with his friends in the neighborhood and he's having a good old time. But with the remote collar, I have means of connection with him that if he were to decide not to do it, I can reinforce it with a tap of the button. Okay. So even in situations with a dog, because he's an animal, he can make decisions on his own, and they're not always going to be to your benefit, that you can still reinforce things. Okay. Prong collar, great tool, but then when we remove the leash, Yo-Yo knows, okay, you don't have the leash anymore. You can't make me come back. Okay. Questions about any of that stuff?
No, I get it.
Were you looking for a certain type of training, like in person or like a daycare and train?
I was kind of weighing both options and I wasn't sure which one would be better because part of me likes the idea of the in-person training just so he can get used to me giving him the commands and working with him versus the daycare. But I think the daycare would be stronger. Like I think he would learn quicker and it'd be a more structured environment than what I would probably provide him at home.
Yeah, so there's pros and cons to either of them. Okay.
Yeah.
The in-person, you definitely learn a lot more. So because of COVID, like I used to go home to all my clients, and then COVID happened and nobody wanted people coming into the home. So then I had to devise a way to like train dogs that would be COVID friendly, so to speak. So I knew I could train dogs without touching the dog through verbal instruction using remote collar. But a lot of people didn't think it was possible. So then we got our first our first post-COVID client, and then we got it done within 2 classes. Her dog had broken her husband's shoulder 3 times, sent them to the ER 2 times, and he was super friendly. He would just
Mm-hmm.
pull all over the place. So in 2 classes, we fixed that. So they were amazed, and they did a testimonial. And after they did their testimonial, all these people started to um, sign up. Um, so if you do it in person now, we've been training out of Oz Park, weather pending,
Mm-hmm.
which is super busy. Dogs, people, strollers, rollerbladers, bikers, baseball games, bar mitzvah parties, aerobics classes. There's all this stuff going on. So you're right there in the midst of everything, but you're training in that environment. Okay. And you're learning how to create functional obedience within that context so that when you go home, it's the same thing. Maybe not as crazy, but you're going to be used to, like, okay, I know how to work this with all the stuff going on. So I don't need to touch the dog anymore. It's all verbal instruction. So you would show up with Yoyo. I would send you some videos beforehand to prep you for your lesson so that we could just jump
Mm-hmm.
right into training. Um, I coach you through it, so I'm present with you, but I'm giving you some directions to follow, and we work with Yoyo, and then we get it done, and I give you your homework, and I go, we'll see you in a week, and then you come back week 2, you let me know about your progress, areas where you're having trouble, we make a couple of adjustments, we work on the second half of heal, give you your homework, you come back the next week. Okay, so you learn more. The
Mm-hmm.
con is, so pro, you learn more. Con, it takes longer. Okay, and if you're wanting to get full control, it's even more time. But it's just more time for you to practice because this past week has been spotty. So, like, I have a few clients that are doing 12-week programs. So they want their
Mm-hmm.
dog completely off leash trained. So this entire week, not a lot of people were able to practice much because of all of the weather. So then they come back a week later, like, well, we only got to practice once because the only day that we could do it, it was raining. And then there was another day it was nice, but then we were busy, things like that happen. So that's also kind of a con to the in-person. The other con would be, uh, as far as I know with Maria, last she told me I'm booked into June and we're going into July already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a little bit of a wait. With the daycare and train, the pro would be we can get you in sooner. The con is the training is tied to us. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have to transfer it to you. So we've had a couple of people, and I always tell this to people, but they forget. I'll tell them when your dog's training in the beginning, until you've had your first follow up with us, or you receive the video from us, the training video, your dog's going to be the same. Okay. Until you start practicing what we've taught him, um, it's going to be the same Yoyo. Okay. So what we do now is we record the first session of every behavior we teach to Yoyo. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So after we get all the behaviors down, you would receive a 1 to 1.5 hour long video. Okay. And it's Enrique with Yoyo, and he's teaching him, and it's the first session. So you see Yoyo from beginning to end. Okay. And Enrique is essentially explaining what he's doing and teaching you, but he's working with Yoyo, right? So as soon as you get that video, you can watch it and begin practicing. Okay. And then you come back and you go, hey, I watched the video, everything's going really well, but I'm still struggling with, like, the recall, or I'm still struggling with, like, correcting Yoyo when he passes me. Then you would set up a follow-up lesson to work with Enrique, where he would help you fix those problems. And then you'd go off and you continue to keep practicing. Okay. So the pro of the daycare and train is we get more stuff done faster.
Mm-hmm.
So think of 1 week with us as like 3 weeks of your time. Okay. So if you did a 5-day daycare and train, that's the equivalent of a 3-week program technically, but we cover all the commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, and heal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you did a 3-week program with me, which is 1 class a week for an hour, the focus of the 3-week program is typically just heal, walking at your leash, walking at your side. The 6-week program would be heal and recall, which is where I was going to kind of put you with what you've told me here. But if you did a 2-week program with us, we get Yoyo even further. Okay, so in 1 week with us, he will learn all 6 commands. Whereas for you, because I have to teach you to train Yo-Yo, you're going to learn less over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really just personal preference. When it comes to the daycare and trains, we tell everybody to watch the video, practice, don't worry about making mistakes, so that when they come back to do their follow-up lessons, they get the most out of the follow-up lessons. Okay. And each, so there's 5, 10, 15, and 20-day programs. Each program comes with a different number of follow-up lessons. So depending on which one you do, you might have like a couple of follow-up lessons versus 4, so on and so forth. But I always tell people to space them out. They don't expire. So we've had a few people that have only done 1 follow-up with us with the video and did a longer program, but they still have like 3 lessons left over, but they haven't had any issues, you know? So I tell them whenever you're ready, whether it's a year from now or whatever, come back and we'll help you fix whatever it is you're having issues with. But for the most part, people are fine with the video and then like 1 or 2 follow-ups afterwards. So questions about any of that stuff so far?
Is the daycare specific days? Is it like Monday through Friday, or is it like Wednesday through Sunday? Or
So
do they have to be consecutive?
it depends on what we have going on. I know we have like 3 daycare and trains going on right now, I believe. So what we do is we'll say like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. We used to say Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but Brianna left. She moved to the suburbs. So on Saturday, I have a new employee who doesn't know how to train yet. So then Saturday's off the books for now. But any day Monday through Friday is fine, because that's when I have the most handlers here. There's the most trainers. So everybody here works, aside from my new employee, works with the board and trains and the daycare and trains. So he's being handled by a lot of different people. So he's not getting set on, okay, I only work with Enrique and I listen to Enrique. Everybody here works with the dogs. Okay. But Enrique is the only one that actually does the follow-up and does the videoing and the teaching and all that stuff.
So then it's 1 week is like 3 days, essentially.
For like the daycare and train?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If you do like a multi-week daycare and train, are you allowed to space them out, or do you want them all consecutive?
Yeah, so we have one guy, for instance, right now, he brings his dog once a week. He brings his dog on Thursdays. So his dog, and he's doing a 5-day program. So his dog just had his 3rd day this past Thursday. Okay, so what he's doing is he's just stretching them out, and he's practicing throughout the weeks. And then he brings it back and he says, hey, like, can you work on this a little bit more? And we're like, okay. And then he drops the dog off on Thursday and we might work on recall because that's what he asked of us, you know?
Okay.
So
yeah.
it's what's the word? You can kind of mold it how you like it, you know? So, but until you get the video or you have your first follow-up with Enrique, which you get the video first, unless something comes up, you can start the training stuff. Okay, so the video is meant for you to review, watch, and start working with Yo-Yo. And then when you feel like you're ready for the follow-up, then you can schedule that.
Is there a training or a guidance call on how to work with the e-collar?
Yeah, we have.
I've never used one. Okay.
Yeah, we so in the video, Enrique, for every dog that we do each video individually. Okay, so there would be one where he talks in the very beginning. He's like, okay, this is the e-collar. This is how it works. I'm going to help you find Yo-Yo's, working number. And he's doing all that real time. And you're watching that. And that's a chunk of the video. And then he's like, now I'm going to teach heel. Now I'm going to teach stay. Now I'm going to teach come, right? So it's sectioned off. But we also have other videos that I've made myself as kind of just general information for people to help them understand the e-collar themselves.
Okay.
Questions?
No, that's it.
Okay. So in terms of like what I would recommend for Yo-Yo, if you're doing this yourself and all you care about is jumping on people, laying down when he sees dogs, leash walking, and recall, I would put you at 6 classes. Okay. Because we cover the heel, which is 2 classes. We would cover recall, which is 2 classes, which leaves classes 5 and 6, which we can use to help teach you how to correct behavior. Or if everything's going really well, we can also teach stationary work, which is, go to your bed and don't move type of deal. If you're wanting like all 6 commands, sit, stay, down, come, place, heel, built to off-leash reliability, then we're talking 9 to 12 class program. Okay. If you do a daycare and train, you'd probably be within the 5 to 10 day range. So just think of the longer that we have Yo-Yo here, the closer we get him towards off-leash reliability. Okay. But I've had people do 10 days and they just practice until they kind of finish off what we didn't accomplish within the 10 days, So I would probably put Yo-Yo at a 5 to 10 day daycare and train, except he would get the sit, stay, down, come, place, and heel commands, regardless of whatever program you work with. If you do a 10-day program, you're going to get 2 videos. The first one is the longest, hour to hour and a half, where we teach everything for the first time. The second video would be shorter. It's probably going to be 15 to 30 minutes. And we transition Yoyo's obedience to a long leash to show you how we start building towards off-leash reliability. And then if you did like a 15 to 20 day program, you would get anywhere from 3 to 4 videos. So for each week that Yo-Yo is here, you get 1 video kind of showing you the progress of how we push him towards the off-leash reliability. Okay. But I would either put you at 5 to 10 day daycare and train, or a 6-week in person if you're wanting to keep it simple. The only command that has to be off-leash reliable is the recall. That's it. Okay. Everything else is if the owner wants. But the 2 most important commands are heel and the recall. And then everything else is kind of like if you need it. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. In terms of the collar, I'd recommend for Yo-Yo, and Maria would follow up with this information, is the Dogtra Black Edition. It's meant for 70-pound dogs and over. It's the highest powered collar there is, because he's got that denser coat and he's a larger dog. You're going to want that collar. Because he has a denser coat, you might need special contact probes to get through the fur. But that's something that we would just figure out, with training. If you notice, like, yeah, Jesse, I have like a lot of inconsistencies with the e-collar, then we would suggest you do the probes. Otherwise, some people just get the probes right off the bat just to have it and not have to deal with like, inconsistencies with the e-collar. Other questions? I guess the last thing would be, the most common question I get is, when does the e-collar go away? And in my book, when you need it. Well, like in the house, if Yo-Yo's a great dog, you don't need it. If you're just walking him out for a quick potty break, you don't need it. But if you're going to go for a long walk, if he's going to go to the park and be off leash, or maybe when people first come over, like maybe the first 15 minutes, because you know how Yo-Yo is, you'd have the collar on so that you can control him. And then once he settles, you can remove it. Okay. So this has nothing to do with my skills as a trainer, has nothing to do with the methodology. It's what we call opportunistic behavior. All animals do it. Do you drive?
I do.
Do you go on the expressway?
Not very often.
You have?
Yeah, I have.
Do you go the speed limit?
No.
Yeah. Most people don't go the speed limit. But then when they see a squad car, what happens?
Slam on your brakes.
Yeah, you slow down because you don't want to get a ticket, right? So that's called opportunistic behavior. Because we know that there's no cops around, there's no one to reinforce the speed limit, we speed. And then when we see the squad car, we slow down.
Yeah, I notice it with Yo-Yo and the prong collar, because if I take him out real quick and I don't have it on, he's more likely to like zigzag pull than if he's just wearing it and like it's not attached to anything. It's just
he just knows
he just knows it's there.
Correct. Yeah. So it's the same thing with the e-collar. It's present. If you've done your training and your follow-up, it's not that you're always having to use it. It's just the presence of it keeps him, like, he knows, like, okay, mom has control, right?
Yeah.
But then also, if something happens that's out of your control, The most common one being random fireworks. If it were to spook Yo-Yo, you still have a means of regaining control. You know, so I've had clients who've like taken their dogs to Oz Park and like some kids will like light up some random fireworks, and the dogs take off, but they're able to get them back because they have their e-collar. So
Hmm.
even like in emergency type situations, it can allow you to regain that control. So like my dogs are off leash trained. They've been off leash trained for 8 to 9 years, and if I'm going to be anywhere where they're going to be off leash, they would still wear their collar. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
So if you have any other questions, Maria, you can follow up with Maria. Otherwise, she'll get in contact with you. If you decide to do a daycare and train, she would forward you over to Kim, who was our new kennel manager, and she's handling all the daycare and train dogs and the board and train dogs to help kind of offload some work from Maria because Maria's busy alone with just my schedule alone.
Hmm.
So, but if you're going to do in person, then Maria would keep in contact with you, and she'll handle all the scheduling and stuff, and she would take your availability and kind of cross reference it with my availability and can see where she can start you. Okay.
Okay.
So if anything else pops up, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see Yo-Yo on Thursday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.